Why? I don't know. Owie, owie, ow, ow, ow. Ow, ow, ow.
What are you talking about today?
Today I'm talking about how I deal with climate grief.
Okay, say it to the camera.
Today we're going to talk about how to deal with climate grief. Okay, step one. Oh my God, don't put your paws in that. Thank you. Hello and welcome. Today we are going to talk about a big elephant in the room in a lot of church spaces. It is climate grief. Listen. The world is it's doing super well, super good, and but climate grief is a very, very real thing that I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about, especially in the church, or at least the church that I go to and that my friends, blah, blah, blah. I don't hear about it a lot in church circles, let's say. But why? When it comes to things like grief and the end of the world and death and sin and all this stuff that's wrapped up in climate eschaton, which is like a fancy word for the end of the world, right? Like, isn't that supposed to be right where the church is? Climate grief is very, very real, very personal, and something that I think weighs on a lot of us all the time. I'm 25, and I don't know if I should be saving for retirement, because what if nothing exists at the end of it? That's great. Should I have kids? Pfft, I don't know. Is this all my fault? Is this all somebody else's fault? What do I do? It's a lot. So instead of thinking about all those things that sort of get me into like a grief spiral horribleness, I've figured some stuff out. Oh my God, my eye. Oh, God is smiting me with some dust. I have figured out a few like tangible things to do, to actually do to handle climate grief, and I'm going to share them with you today. So climate grief can be a good and healthy and natural thing to feel, and I think it's important to process what's going on around us. But at the same time, when it leads to despair, we're only hurting ourselves, and we're a part of creation too. And so it's important to care for ourselves, especially so that we can go out and care for the world. Because it needs that. Number one, this is super tangible. Get a hobby. Okay, and I don't mean like self-care, cheesy, whatever crap talk about like take a bubble bath or something. Like, no, excuse me, the world is ending. I will take a bubble bath, like that sounds really nice. I'll treat myself all day long. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about hobbies, creative hobbies, things that get your body out into the world and like making stuff. It could be repairing your car, doing arts and crafts, painting, juggling, running, things people do, acrobatics, archery. All of this creation that we're mourning, it's still very present and we get to be in it still. So go out and create stuff. Focus on your hands and remember that we're still a part of this and we can still just physically exist in the world, which is a blessing in and of itself. Because that's the point, is to live fully and to create. God made us to be creative together. Creation is still here and it's worth celebrating. So go forth and create. Hot tip number 2. Focus on one thing. None of us alone are going to fix this situation. The situation. It is pretty much impossible for us to be the zero waste, carbon negative viral YouTuber, right? I mean, pretty sure every account like that is lying in some way. Capitalism's gonna capitalism. But within this world that we're always sinning in, just sort of by existing, we can focus on one thing at a time and get really good at being good to the world in that one thing. You're really stressed about fast fashion? Go thrifting. Get really into it, upcycle stuff. Make it into a joy in your life to remedy that specific part of the world and your specific like little bubble of the world, because you can do it. Is there a local issue you're concerned about, local pollution or something like that? I mean, get the numbers of your local representatives and make it like a weekly habit integrated with that bubble bath idea. Okay, you take your bubble bath. You take your bubble bath, you got your Epsom salts, it's all foamy and nice, and then you call your local representatives and you complain to clean up something very local, something in your little section of the world. And I promise you'll see like actual change in the world. We're often so far removed from the stuff that we're trying to affect. We're never going to see the results of our labor unless we're one of the people on the forefront of activism, and power to you because we need you. Thank you. But for the majority of us, we're not that person. And we're just really struggling to go day to day. So focusing on one thing at a time and getting it right, which kind of brings me to my next tip, which is less tangible. It's okay to not be in complete control. We tend to connect culpability and responsibility to fix the problem, right? I messed up, I did this thing, I need to go fix it. And that's true most of the time. But for something as huge and complicated as the world itself, like the health of creation in general, we have to remember that we aren't God. And going out as just a single human individual and trying to save all of creation is about as possible as a single human individual going out and creating it in the first place. You know, it's too big, it's too complicated, it's not going to happen. Fixing all of creation and all this mess that we have created over centuries, like that's a big we, right? That's me and you and people who aren't even alive anymore and people who honestly aren't born yet. We're all part of this problem. And so fixing it is kind of above our cosmic pay grade. We're not supposed to take it on and have control over it. We're supposed to do what God directs us to do to help fix it. If you have walked with God and opened your heart to caring for creation and actually taken actions, maybe inconvenient actions, to help the world, you've done a great job. Even if this whole project fails, you can still do a good job and be successful in it. It's okay to not be in complete control. And so my fourth and final thing, now this one's tangible, this one's nice, and it's pray. Something that I think I don't do enough. I think we could all stand to do a little bit more. And here's a specific prayer. So this is the chapter in Isaiah right at the beginning where God appears to him in the temple and is just terrifying, just really, really scary. And Isaiah recounts this like walking into the temple and there are weird creatures everywhere and seraphim and it's loud. There's smoke everywhere. I don't know. It sounds horrible. And then God says, I need your help. Who will help me? And Isaiah says, here I am. Choose me. Hey. And then Isaiah's life gets really shitty, but his work is so important that we still read it now. He is still speaking to nations that he could not have known would exist. I think about abolitionists in like the early 1800s, late 1700s in America, who would not live to see the abolition of slavery in the United States. But they still worked for it, and they worked their whole lives for something they did not know whether it would be successful or not. I think about Frederick Douglass in his speech, What to the Slave is the 4th of July, where, and you should read this, it is an incredible, I can't do it justice, obviously, go read it. I will just pause this video right now, go read. I'll put a link. Okay, thank you for reading it. So at the end, it's a very hopeless, grief-ridden, angry piece, but at the end, he closes with hope. He says, and I'm going to read it from here, there are forces in operation which must inevitably work the downfall of slavery. The arm of the Lord is not shortened, and the doom of slavery is certain. He didn't know it then, but he actually would live to see the abolition of chattel slavery in the United States. God is working and working and working, and maybe we won't see the fruits of our work with God. Oh, hi, I'm making a video.
Oh, hey, sorry, did I interrupt it?
It's okay.
Whoops.
So together, when we do this work, and this is together, we're that arm of the Lord. When we pray this thing from Isaiah, this here I am, it's not just saying, here I am, I'm going to save the day. It's saying, I'm going to set aside my day-to-day worries, and I'm going to put that on God. Because God already knows what's happening next, good or bad. I don't know why, but that's a comfort to me. Maybe it is for you too. So we don't need to know what's coming next. We don't need to be in full control. We just need to go one step at a time, pushing just a little bit every day in a godly direction, caring for the earth and caring for creation. That means prayerfully giving up personal attachments to stuff. It means praying a lot more, listening for God's direction, and being willing to do inconvenient things. It's a good lesson from Isaiah that his life got harder. Abolitionists in the 1700s, life was hard. But that amazing work that they did ultimately paid off like a century later. And it wasn't just the headliner people working. It was everybody pushing as a wave to make the world a better place. So here's my summary for you. Climate grief is very, very real. In some ways, it's a good and natural, invigorating thing, right? Or at least a natural and good sadness. But in other ways, it can lead to despair. In other ways, it can damage us and mire us in this vortex of blah. But there are things we can do individually and together to get up, to get moving, to get our hands on creation and make new things in it. We can take tangible actions to take care and have good stewardship of our little portion of the earth and maybe make that little portion a little bit bigger every day. Right? And we can have a prayer life in which we give up portions of our selfishness and promise God, I will live for you, because it's God's plan. God's plan is always to feed and resurrect creation. There's a whole Bible about it, and you can read it. God multiplies food and calms storms. God heals the sick and mourns the dead. We're not alone. You are not alone in this. I don't know if it's going to be okay. But we can do a good job.